Why do you procrastinate? Why do we procrastinate actually? My name is Chinazom. I'm a Nigerian currently living in Germany, and I like to talk about the psychology of everything. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that everybody can relate to. Everybody can relate to it, whether it comes to like putting off submitting a project or completing a project or waiting until the last minute to do something you're supposed to do, whether it's folding laundry, whether it's doing dishes, whatever. Why do we procrastinate? And most of the time, people think that it's because we are lazy or just simply unmotivated, and that's why we procrastinate. Spoiler alert, it is not. Well, there's the fact that you can simply just not like doing something. For example, I don't like folding laundry, so when I have to fold laundry, it takes a bit. But yeah, like we're talking about procrastination today, and how, like, what causes procrastination? Why do we procrastinate? And in this video, we're breaking it down, the psychology behind procrastination, and basically how we can break that habit. First things first, it turns out that procrastination is just not about poor time management skills or um, like lack of motivation or laziness. Guess what? Procrastination is a psychological coping mechanism, and what that means is that we are avoiding something. So you could either be boredom, the fear of failure, discomfort. You are procrastinating because you are avoiding something. So the first thing I'd like to say is that procrastination is emotional, it is not logical. It is mostly about how we feel in the moment, how are we feeling in a particular moment, and however we feel in that moment just makes us like decide on what we need to do. And most of the time we will choose something that gives us comfort and that, just helps us cope in that instance, rather than like doing what we're supposed to do basically. So when we have to do something and we think that that thing we need to do is going to cause stress or anxiety or self-doubt, we put it away, and our brain just tells us do something more relaxing, do something more comforting, like watching Netflix, playing games, just laying in bed, doing whatever, scrolling online, something, anything apart from the stuff that we're actually supposed to be doing. Now, let's talk about three major triggers for procrastination. The first one is stress, the second one is anxiety, and the third one is the fear of failure. So, anxiety, what does this mean for procrastination, right? When thinking about doing something or trying to start doing something makes us feel anxious. We like it could be because of like a lack of confidence in like doing the stuff, or you've never done it before. Our brain literally just goes into avoidance mode. So it's almost like you start doing something, and then because you're starting to feel anxious, you're like, oh, it's 7 p.m. I don't have motivation in the evening. I'll do it tomorrow morning. I have more energy in the morning. And then we put it off, or we say, I'll be mentally prepared for this. That morning comes and you're like, let me just do one or two things. I'll do this thing later. And then it's evening, and then you're saying, oh, I'll do it in the morning again. So you constantly keep putting it off for later, and that later never really comes. The second trigger for procrastination is stress. It works in a similar way to anxiety, right? But this one, when the thought of doing something makes us just feel stressed, like maybe because of like the size of the task or because of the complexity and stuff, like thinking about it just stresses you. Our mind or our brain has a way of just going into avoidance mode. So when something is starting to stress you, you're like, I beg, I can't deal with this right now. And our brain just goes into this flight or fight mode. And for some of us, fleeing is the like flight is fleeing is the way that we usually go, and we're like, I'll deal with this later, and of course that later never comes. And then the third one is the fear of failure. So this is like it's kind of like perfectionism. It has like a, will I say, shadow of perfectionism, because we're like thinking about what we need to do, and because you don't feel like you're going to do it perfectly, you put it away, and you're like, it's almost like if I don't do it, or if I don't start it, I would not feel right. So I'd rather not do it. I'll do it when everything is complete, you know. For example, you want to start a YouTube channel and then you have an iPhone, or you have a really good phone, and you have a laptop to edit your videos, or even your phone. You can still use your phone to edit it, but you just want to get the you want to get the camera, you want to get light and stuff like that. But guess what? Because of because of that fear of failure, even when you get those things, you constantly look for something that you don't have that is supposed to make your channel perfect. So that fear of failure keeps making you put it away, and then that time never really comes when you're like, when you feel perfectly ready to do that stuff. And then you hear me mentioning your brain, your brain, your brain. There's a whole science behind this stuff. I would not really get into it, but the parts of the brain involved in this is like your prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. I will not really go deep into this, but the only thing I'll say is that your limbic system has a lot to do with your emotions, right? And is what like drives emotion in your brain. And then your prefrontal cortex is like the logical part of your brain. And these two parts of your brain they both have a lot to do with procrastination. And that's what I'll say, because I don't want to get deep into it. So yeah, your limbic system is at work when you're choosing comfort. In short, what the reason why I mentioned that is that when you choose to procrastinate, or when you're procrastinating, just know that your limbic system and your prefrontal cortex, they're like in a battle, they're in a boxing ring trying to know who is going to win this competition. So yeah, now that we understand why we procrastinate, it's not really our fault, it's our brain's fault. So yeah, now that we understand why we procrastinate, let's talk about like practical steps, so things that we can do to kind of break the habits, practical steps that we can take to kind of break the habit. The first one I'll mention would be breaking down what you need to do into smaller tasks. So you're literally telling your brain that, okay, so an example I'll give is that if you have to write a book, or if you have to do an assignment or write a paper which is like 10 pages, instead of saying, oh my god, I have to write the 10-page paper, just say, today I'll work on the introduction, I'll work on the first page, you work on the first page. So that way there's no opportunity for your brain to go into stress mode, anxiety mode, flight of like the perfectionism mode. So that way you're able to actually break down the tasks. The second one is the 5-minute rule. This one is like we are tricking our brain. Sorry, brain. So yeah, we are tricking our brain and just starting. So the 5-minute rule is that you're going to tell yourself that I'm folding this laundry for 5 minutes. Whatever laundry I can fold in 5 minutes is what I'll do. I'm doing press up or whatever, I'm squatting for 5 minutes. And what we find that what happens is that once you start, you kind of just keep going. But telling your brain that you're just going to do it for 5 minutes, it's a way to actually get you to start doing that stuff. So like especially when it comes to things that are not that major. So I mean, if you need to clean your apartment and you say I'm going to clean for 5 minutes, whatever I can do in 5 minutes, when you start, like, why would you stop after 5 minutes? So yeah, that's a trick. Third one is setting clear boundaries. No, not boundaries. That was my own boundaries. Setting clear deadlines. So when you set a deadline for yourself, it creates a sense of urgency. So you could tell yourself, so it shouldn't be vague. So instead of saying I'll finish this stuff by the end of the week. Actually say I'll finish this stuff on Friday, or let's just say on Thursday at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. So that way you have like a strict deadline that you should follow. So yeah. The fourth one is practicing self-compassion. It's okay to get overwhelmed. Some tasks, some things we have to do are actually overwhelming. So be kind to yourself. Embrace those moments where you're feeling stressed or anxious, and tell yourself that it's okay to feel this way, because what happens if you don't is that it becomes so overwhelming, and then you keep procrastinating, and then you keep hating yourself for procrastinating, and the cycle continues, or you keep having these negative emotions because you procrastinated, and the cycle continues. But when you're kind to yourself and just embrace it, like, I'm feeling stressed right now, I'm feeling anxious right now, it's okay to feel that way. And when you acknowledge it, you realize that you see that it's normal. So that way you're able to actually pick yourself back up and continue what you need to do. The fifth thing I would like to talk about is using the Pomodoro technique. So this one is when you work in chunks of time. So it's basically a time management technique where you work for example, you work for 25 minutes and then take a 5 minutes break. You work for another 25 minutes and take a 5 minutes break, like that. So that way, when you complete 4 cycles of 25 minutes work time, then you can take a longer break of 15 to 20 minutes, right? So what that does is that it helps you know that you're not going to work for hours at a stretch. You kind of break down your working time, giving you time to refresh your brain or something like that. Yeah. So basically time management. And then the last one is what's the last one? Minimizing distraction. So we have to make it easy for our brain to help us focus. So minimize distraction. If you're somebody that works from home, or you have to work out or something, just minimize the distraction. Maybe close tabs that would tempt you into procrastinating, or keep your phone away, put your phone on focus mode when you're working and things like that. That way you actually don't have these triggers or things that would distract you around you, which would then make you to end up procrastinating because you couldn't focus. So we've talked about why we procrastinate. We've talked a little bit about the science behind procrastination, and we've talked about practical steps to help us break the habit. So now we know that procrastination is not really about laziness or lack of motivation, but it's mostly about avoiding things like stress, anxiety, self-doubt, or fear of failure. And we know that sometimes our brains fight to kind of part of our brain fights to win, basically. And now that we know this, let's try to practice it. Start with little things, right? It's not going to happen overnight. One thing I always tell people, or one experience that I've shared, is that start with something little. If you're not somebody that lays your bed every day, start with laying your bed, building habits, right? Lay your bed every morning. Lay your bed neatly every morning, and then when you find out that this is a habit that you've built, it helps you actually know that, okay, I succeeded in changing the habit, so I can do other things as well. So yeah, if you found this video helpful, I'm glad you actually stayed until the end. And if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, share it with your friends, because I feel like it would help even one person, right? And tell me in the comment section what your biggest psychological trigger is, and which of the techniques are you willing to try. Stay tuned, because a lot more topics that are really relatable will be coming to this channel. And so thank you, and see you in the next video. Ciao.